Hi guys, we know the Tories left the NHS with a massive waiting list, but also underpaid doctors, nurses and other staff, while privatising as much as possible. We know they left schools overcrowded, with burnt out teachers and crumbling buildings, while handing more and more money to the private sector. We know they let prisons fill up without building new ones, and at the same time talking tough on dealing with crime. However, what could be the most explosive story since the new government has taken over is the true cost of the Rwanda Scheme. While the Conservatives said that it cost about £500 million, with some fixed costs going on for some years, the real number is closer to an actual £10 billion.
Mr. Speaker, let me return to the Rwanda Migration and Economic Development Partnership. So 2.5 years after the previous government launched it, I can report it has already cost the British taxpayer £700 million in order to send just 4 volunteers. Those costs include £290 million payments to Rwanda, chartering flights that never took off, detaining hundreds of people and then releasing them, and paying for more than 1,000 civil servants to work on the scheme. A scheme to send 4 people. It is the most shocking waste of taxpayers' money I have ever seen. Looking forward, the costs are set to get worse. Even if the scheme had ever got going, it's clear it would only cover a minority of arrivals. Yet a substantial portion of future costs were fixed costs. For example, the annual direct payments to Rwanda, the contracts for escorts, the staffing in the Home Office, the detention and reception centres and more. So the taxpayer would still have to pay out no matter how few people were relocated. And most shocking of all, over the 6 years of the Migration and Economic Development Partnership forecast, the previous government had planned to spend over £10 billion of taxpayers' money on the scheme. They did not tell Parliament that. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Rwandan government for working with the UK in good faith, because the failure for this policy lies with the previous UK government. It has been a costly con, and the taxpayer has had to pay the price.
£10 billion. The Tories were willing to spend £10 billion for what? To send a few people to Rwanda. And what was the goal of that? As I mentioned before, to keep a few racists and bigots happy for about 10 minutes. £10 billion at a time when they were saying, we had to impose austerity under George Osborne because, we had to tighten our belts. And then the Tories recently saying, well, we couldn't pay doctors and nurses more because we had to cut back because of all the money that was spent on the pandemic. I did a quick bit of research, and, it's looking at averages. But with £10 billion, you could build about 17 or 18 hospitals. Doesn't include staff or anything, but just physical buildings, 17, 18 new hospitals, 500 new schools, 1,000 miles of railway. And it's estimated that you could eliminate poverty completely for a number of years with that sum. And the Tories were willing to spend that money, once again, to keep a few racists and bigots happy for about 10 minutes, to try and deal with the threat of Nigel Farage and Reform UK. And in the end, they lost. Nigel Farage and Reform UK stole votes from them, cost them, as they chased them, as they were willing to spend billions of pounds, £10 billion, on a policy that Rishi Sunak didn't support when he became Prime Minister, and James cleverly called something I can't repeat here. Wouldn't it be great if they actually had to put their hand in their pocket? They had to reach out to their donors to cover the cost of these ridiculous schemes, these gimmicks. It wasn't part of a manifesto. It wasn't something that the British people cared about. It was an attempt to divide the public and reach out to the lowest common denominator, because once again the Conservatives were desperately afraid of Reform UK and Nigel Farage. Just let that marinate in your mind for a moment. £10 billion. 17 or 18 new hospitals, hundreds of schools, 1,000 miles of railway, and homelessness eliminated for years. They don't deserve 100 odd seats. They deserve 0 seats. But unfortunately, their friends in the media will spin this and say, well, it was money well spent, or it's the Labour Party cooking the books or something. It's ridiculous. And they don't deserve even 1 seat in Parliament. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.